He played a flute. He led the rats into the river. Then he turned around and led the children into the mountain. The story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin has lived for centuries, a strange tale, half myth, half warning, told to children across Europe. Stay obedient, or the piper will come. But here is the truth. The tale was never really about rats, because the oldest versions do not mention rats at all. They speak only of disappearance, of an entire generation of children vanishing in a single day, led away by a man in strange, colourful clothes. No music, no rodents, just loss. The Pied Piper story is not a fairy tale, it is a historical mystery. And what happened in the German town of Hamelin in the year 1284 remains one of the most disturbing unsolved legends in European folklore. This is the truth behind the piper, and once you hear it, you will never think of that tune the same way again. It begins with a date, not a metaphor, not a vague once upon a time, but a very real inscription was found in the town of Hamelin. In the year of 1284, on the day of Saints John and Paul, 130 children of Hamelin disappeared. That sentence is carved into stone, a historical marker, not fiction, and it does not mention rats. The earliest records of the Pied Piper, from the 14th century, say nothing about a plague of vermin. They speak only of a man, strange, otherworldly, dressed in garments of many colours, a foreigner perhaps, or something not quite human. He arrives in Hamelin with a purpose. He plays his instrument and the children follow. They leave the city behind and they never return. Some say they were swallowed by a mountain, others say they walked into the river. But the effect is the same, an entire generation gone. So the question is, what really happened, and why would a town record this event like fact? Because unlike most fairy tales, the piper's tale is tied to a real place. Hamelin exists, the inscription existed, carved into the stone of the town church before it was lost to time. For centuries, the town's records and oral traditions passed the event down. A stained glass window once depicted the children walking into the mountain, led by a man in vibrant clothes. No rats, no music, just disappearance. The rat story? That came much later. Historians believe it was added in the 1500s, over 200 years after the event was first recorded. So why add rats? And what, or who, was the piper really? In Act 2, we will explore the chilling theories, from mass child migration to plague to something even darker. Because the piper may not have been a villain, he may have been a symbol of death, of war, or something worse. The records say 130 children vanished, but they do not say why, they do not say how. And for over 700 years, scholars, folklorists, and historians have tried to solve the mystery. If there were no rats and no magical flute, then what really happened in Hamelin? Let us begin with the most accepted theory, that the Pied Piper was real, not a sorcerer, not a ghost, but a recruiter, a colonizer. In the 13th century, German nobles were expanding eastward into what is now Poland, Romania, and parts of the Baltics. These regions were underdeveloped, thinly populated, and in need of skilled labour. Nobles sent out men, colourful, persuasive figures who promised land, wealth, and a better life to young workers. Some of these men were musicians, others wore bright clothing to stand out. They travelled from town to town, offering dreams. What if one such man arrived in Hamelin? What if he promised the youth of the town something more than their hard lives, something new, something free? And what if the parents did not approve? What if the children left in secret? A mass migration, not magic. A group of teenagers and young adults walking east, hoping for a future they would never reach. That might explain why only children disappeared, why no bodies were found, why the town's records mention only the loss and not a crime. But there is a problem. No documents ever confirm where those children went. No neighbouring town recorded their arrival, no graves, no survivors. It is as if they truly did vanish. Which brings us to a darker theory, plague. The Black Death did not officially arrive in Europe until the 14th century, decades after 1284. But it was not the only disease. Outbreaks of ergot poisoning, typhoid, and unknown fevers struck medieval towns like ghosts in the dark. Children were the most vulnerable. In a time without modern medicine, a single infected well or a contaminated grain supply could wipe out dozens in days. Some scholars believe that is what happened in Hamelin, that a disease spread through the young. Instead of burying the children in shame, the town created a myth, a piper, a mountain, a song that led them away, because the truth that they died choking, burning, raving was too painful, too real. And so the town mourned through fiction. It turned death into a disappearance, pain into poetry. But not all theories are so rational. Some go deeper, stranger. What if the piper wasn't a man at all? What if he was a metaphor? Let's look closer at his image. He arrives suddenly, wears colours that don't match any known uniform, plays an instrument no one else can resist. And when the townspeople betray him and refuse to pay him for his services, he returns, not for gold, but for blood. He leads the children away, not one or two, all of them, except, in some versions, for the lame and the blind, those unable to follow. He doesn't harm them, he just takes them. It sounds like a punishment, a curse. And in folklore, there's only one figure who fits that description perfectly: death. The piper is death, not violent, not angry, just inevitable. He plays his tune, and the young follow, willingly, helplessly, joyfully. Some scholars even suggest that the bright colours of his clothing represent the surreal beauty often described in near-death visions. He isn't a monster, he's a transition. He comes when his payment is refused, when the natural order is disrupted, when greed overtakes duty. And to restore balance, he takes what is most precious: the children, the future, the joy, gone. Another theory goes even deeper into the realm of darkness, that the piper was not death, not disease, but vengeance. Some believe the townspeople of Hamelin committed a terrible crime, one erased from history: massacre, betrayal. Perhaps they murdered a group of outsiders, or refused sanctuary to the innocent, or desecrated something sacred. And the piper was a spirit summoned by their guilt, or a wanderer who witnessed their sin and made them pay. In this version, the children are taken as a sacrifice, not because of who they were, but because of what their elders did, a generational punishment, biblical, cruel, unforgettable. And it gets worse. In one obscure variation of the tale, the children are not led into the mountains, but into the river. They drown, like the rats in later versions, which raises a haunting question. If the rats weren't part of the original story, why were they added, and when? The answer points to the 16th century, more than 200 years after the original inscription. By then, stories had changed. The idea of rats, seen as dirty, diseased, and dangerous, became common in European symbolism. They were the face of filth. They were the bringers of plague. And so the tale evolved. Rats were added to explain why the piper came. He was hired to rid the town of a curse. He did. and when they refused to pay him, he cursed them in return. It makes the story easier, cleaner, moral, but it also deflects the guilt. Because now the piper isn't punishing an unthinkable crime, he's just angry over a broken deal. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the rats were added to distract us, to keep us from asking the real question, not why the piper took the children, but what did the town do to deserve it? That question echoes through the centuries. Because even today in Hamelin, the children's street, the one where they were said to vanish, is real. It's called Bungalowsenstrasse. No music is allowed there, not even bells. The silence is part of the legend, as if the town is still afraid that the piper might come back, that his music might play again, and this time not just children would follow. In Act 3, we'll ask the final question: was the Pied Piper ever real, or was he something much older, much darker, hiding in the stories we tell to silence our guilt? Because if he was never about rats, what was he really playing for? So who was he? A recruiter? A murderer? A symbol of death? Or just a story created to mask something far worse? The truth is, we may never know, because the piper isn't just a character, he's an echo, a shadow that has followed humanity through time. He appears when we try to forget, when we try to rewrite the past, when guilt becomes too heavy to carry and we need a villain to blame. That is what makes this tale so terrifying, not because of what's said, but because of what's missing. The rats were added to distract us. The music softened the horror. The mountain covered the bodies, and the children, they became a myth. But somewhere, buried beneath centuries of retellings, is a moment that really happened. Something that made an entire town carve the date into stone. Something so haunting. They couldn't tell the truth, so they sang it instead, as a warning. And maybe that is what the Pied Piper really is, a warning. That broken promises demand a price. That innocence once taken cannot be returned. That when we forget what we've done, something will come to remind us. Not with violence, but with music, with a tune so beautiful, so impossible to resist, that we follow and vanish. If this story made you see the piper differently, you're not alone. Leave a comment below. Was he real or just a reflection of our darkest instincts? And if you want more haunting truths behind forgotten tales, make sure to subscribe, because next time we're opening the case of the Brothers Grimm and the horrifying stories they tried to hide.